It's a quiet moment. You're standing in the kitchen, staring at your phone while the microwave hums. Someone just spoke to you, maybe asked a simple question, and you nodded, but a second later, you realize you didn't actually hear what they said. You were there, but not really there. That feeling can sneak up on you. It's subtle. Nothing dramatic is happening, but something feels slightly off. Like you're watching your own life from a few steps back. And it can leave you wondering why you feel so distant from moments that are right in front of you. What this can be is a kind of mental absence. Not spacing out for fun. Not daydreaming. Just a sense that you're physically present, but your attention is somewhere else, or nowhere at all. In this video, we're going to slow down and look at why that happens, and what it's trying to tell you. Mental absence often shows up as a low-level disconnection from the moment you're in, even when nothing is technically wrong. You're doing the things. Answering messages. Going to work. Talking to people. But it feels like there's a thin layer of fog between you and what's happening. One common reason is that your mind has been running ahead of your body for a long time. When life stays busy or demanding, your attention learns to live slightly in the future. Planning. Anticipating. Bracing for the next thing. Over time, that can pull you out of the present moment, even when you finally have a chance to rest. So you sit down, but your mind doesn't fully arrive with you. You might notice this when you finish a task and immediately feel uneasy, like you forgot something, even when you didn't. The habit of staying alert doesn't turn off easily. Sometimes, it comes from emotional overload that never quite had a place to land. Not a big event. Just a build-up. Small disappointments. Ongoing pressure. Conversations you didn't fully process. When there's no space to feel those things, your mind can gently step back instead. Not to avoid life, but to make it quieter. You might notice yourself drifting during conversations, or feeling oddly numb during moments that used to feel warm. It's not that you don't care. It's that caring has been taking more energy than you had. There's also a quieter reason that often sits underneath. You've learned to stay slightly removed as a way to stay safe. For some people, being fully present once meant being fully affected by criticism, conflict, or unpredictability. So the mind adapts. It stays close enough to function, but far enough to avoid impact. This can show up as a vague distance from your own reactions. You notice things happening, but your feelings arrive late, or not at all. It's subtle, but persistent. Picture this. It's early evening, maybe just after dinner. You're sitting on the couch, TV on, phone in your hand. A show you usually like is playing, but you've missed half the dialogue. You scroll without reading. Your body feels still, but your chest feels slightly hollow. You keep checking the time, not because you're waiting for something, but because you're not sure what to do with yourself. If you've been there, you're not strange. You might know someone who lives like this. This is what not being present can look like when it's quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It just leaves you feeling like you're hovering nearby instead of fully inside your own life. When this happens, your first instinct might be to force yourself back into the moment. To pay more attention. To focus harder. But that often makes the distance feel even sharper. Instead, it can help to start smaller and gentler. One way is to anchor your attention in something physical and neutral. Not meaningful. Not productive. Just real. The feel of the couch under your arm. The sound of a car passing outside. The weight of your feet on the floor. You don't stay there forever. You just check in for a few seconds. This works because your body is always in the present, even when your mind isn't. Letting your attention rest there briefly can help the rest of you catch up. Another gentle approach is to notice when the absence started, without trying to explain it away. You might think back and realize it began during a busy stretch, or after a series of small stresses. Naming that timing, quietly, to yourself, can soften the confusion. It reminds you that this feeling didn't come out of nowhere. It formed for a reason. And reasons can change. But there's one detail people often miss, and it changes how this whole thing feels. Being not present isn't always a failure of attention. Sometimes it's a sign that your system has been holding too much for too long. Stepping back was the only way it knew how to cope. This is for people who look fine on the outside, but feel slightly detached on the inside. For people who keep moving, even when something in them has paused. Feeling not present doesn't mean you're disconnected from life. It often means you've been trying to stay afloat. You don't have to force yourself to snap back. Presence can return slowly, in small moments, when there's room again. And if this explanation felt familiar, you're not alone. You're welcome to stay here for more quiet reflections like this, one feeling at a time.